Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive.
Always fun to be back.
So today we're going to be looking at how generative AI is changing things up
Uh-huh.
for small businesses.
Yeah.
And all this is based on a really interesting Gusto survey that came out.
Really interesting.
I think one of the most surprising things is that almost a third of small businesses are already using generative AI.
Wow.
And they're actually seeing some benefits already.
It's not just like a future thing anymore. It's happening now.
It's not theoretical.
Right.
It's real.
Yeah. And they're finding, some pretty interesting things in
Yeah.
terms of how this is affecting their business.
Absolutely. Like we're going to be talking about how it's changing the hiring game,
Uh-huh.
how it's impacting employee satisfaction,
Right.
and even how it's helping businesses in industries you wouldn't expect to really benefit from this are actually thriving.
Yeah. One of the things that I thought was so fascinating about the survey is that
Yeah.
it's not just about automating tasks. It's about how they're using it strategically
Yeah.
to get some really great results for their business.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the stats that really jumped out at me was that businesses using generative AI were 45% more likely to fill open roles
That's huge.
compared to businesses that weren't.
Yeah.
That is a huge difference.
It is.
What do you think is going on there? What's the secret sauce?
Well, I think there's a couple of things that are contributing to this success.
Okay.
The first one is that
Yeah.
generative AI can handle a lot of those tasks that, we as humans tend to find really tedious.
Right.
Things like screening resumes,
Oh, yeah.
scheduling interviews.
Nobody likes doing that.
Exactly. And so by taking those tasks off of our plates, it really frees up those human teams
Right.
to focus on the more engaging parts of the hiring process.
So it's not about replacing the humans. It's about letting the humans do
Absolutely.
the things that are good at.
Yeah, it's all about making those human interactions much more meaningful. And also, by, automating some of those tasks can really streamline the process.
Right.
Businesses can move much more quickly,
Yeah.
and they can be much more efficient. And in a competitive labor market, that's a huge advantage.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense, especially in the current climate.
Yeah.
Another thing that really stood out to me in the survey was that employees at businesses using generative AI are 42% more likely to exceed expectations.
Interesting.
Do you think that's tied into what we were just talking about?
I think there's definitely a connection there.
Okay.
When employees aren't bogged down
Yeah.
with all of those repetitive tasks, they have so much more time and energy to focus on those projects
Right.
that require things like creativity
Right.
and really in-depth critical thinking.
So it's empowering them to be more engaged and just more productive overall.
Absolutely.
I can see how that would lead to, exceeding those expectations.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I'm curious, do you think this applies across all industries?
That's where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
What they found in the survey was that community and personal service industries,
Okay.
things like nonprofits, healthcare, and the arts,
Interesting.
we're seeing really significant benefits from using generative AI.
See, that's not what I would have expected. I
Yeah.
always kind of had in my mind that, generative AI was like
Right.
a tech thing.
Yeah, it's a really common misconception.
Okay.
But if you think about it, a
Yeah.
lot of these industries, like
Mm.
nonprofits and healthcare, involve a lot of administrative work
Yeah, for sure.
and a lot of data management, and that's something that generative AI can really help with.
Right.
And so it's taking those tasks away from those employees so
Yeah.
that they can focus on their core skills and passions.
So, whether it's caring for patients or creating art or serving their community, it's
Exactly.
all about letting the people do what they're best at,
Yeah.
no matter what industry they're in. That's a really powerful message, I think. And it seems like younger generations are really embracing this technology.
Yeah, definitely.
The survey found a pretty big difference
Yeah.
between how millennials and Gen Z business owners
Uh-huh.
are using AI
Mm-hmm.
compared to, Gen X and baby boomers.
Yeah, it really highlights how the different generations
Yeah.
are approaching these new technologies. Millennials and Gen Z, they grew up with this constant,
Right.
rapid technological advancement.
So they're used to it.
Yeah, so they're much more comfortable
Right.
experimenting with new technologies and, integrating new tools into their workflows.
It makes you wonder how this generational shift is going to shape the future of work as a whole.
It really does.
Like, what's it going to look like?
And I think it's not just about the comfort level with the technology. It's a completely different mindset.
Yeah.
It's a mindset of adaptability
Uh-huh.
and innovation. They're coming in knowing that technology is a tool.
Right.
It's something to be leveraged.
Not to be feared.
Exactly.
I think that's a really key point. It's not about replacing human workers.
Right.
It's about figuring out how humans and AI can work together effectively.
Exactly. And that's one of the things that I thought was so interesting about the data from this survey.
Yeah.
It really does support that idea.
Awesome. Well, let's dig into that a little bit.
Okay.
Let's look at how small businesses are actually using
Yeah.
generative AI, like in their day-to-day operations.
So some of the ways that small businesses are using generative AI, a big one is planning.
Okay.
33% of the businesses are using it for planning.
Okay.
Another one is research.
Yeah.
49% are using it for business research.
Wow.
35% are using it for legal research.
So they're using it to gain insights,
Yes,
strategize, make informed decisions.
precisely. And then they're also purchasing expert-created
Oh, wow.
generative AI solutions.
They're really investing in this.
Yeah, 30% of businesses are doing that.
Wow. So it's not just like, dipping their toe in the water. They're like full on diving in.
You're going all in.
Yeah. But I do have to ask,
Yeah,
are there any downsides to all this?
that's a great question.
What are some of the challenges that businesses are facing
Yeah.
when it comes to adopting generative AI?
One of the biggest challenges,
Mhm.
especially for small businesses, is cost.
Makes sense.
Small businesses often have limited resources.
Right.
And while some of those basic generative AI tools are becoming more accessible,
Uh-huh.
the ones that can really be transformative for a business can require significant investment.
Okay.
And it's not just the upfront cost of the software itself,
Right.
it's also the time and resources it takes to implement it effectively.
So it's not just like a plug-and-play solution.
No, it's not.
You really have to think it through, plan it out,
You have to have training,
get the training.
ongoing support.
Yeah, and make sure it's working the way you want it to.
Exactly.
Okay, so that's a challenge. What else?
So another challenge is that learning curve.
Yeah, it can be kind of complicated.
It can be. It takes time and effort to learn how to use these tools effectively.
Right.
And for a small business that doesn't have dedicated IT staff or a lot of resources to devote to training,
Uh-huh.
that can be a real barrier.
So it sounds like successfully integrating generative AI is like a journey.
It is.
It's not a destination.
It is a journey.
You're constantly learning and adapting
Absolutely.
as the technology evolves.
And refining your approach.
Right. But the rewards could be huge.
The potential rewards are enormous.
Yeah, you're right. You're totally right. We've seen how generative AI can transform hiring,
Yeah.
boost employee satisfaction, and
Yeah.
unlock these new levels of creativity and innovation.
Absolutely.
But there's one thing that I just keep coming back to,
Okay.
and that's the human element.
Yeah.
Where do our human skills and talents fit into this
Right.
AI-powered future of work?
That is the million-dollar question.
It is, and it's one that I think we should definitely dive into.
We should.
But we're going to have to do that after a quick break.
Sounds good. We were talking about the challenges and the rewards of integrating generative AI into small businesses, but at the end of the day, it all comes back to that human element.
Yeah, you're so right. As amazing as all this technology is,
Yeah.
we can't forget about the people
Right.
who are actually making these businesses run.
Absolutely. And that's why it's so important to think about how our uniquely human skills can work with these powerful tools.
Okay, so what are those, what are the uniquely human skill that we should be focusing on?
Well, think about the things that even with all the advancements, AI still struggles with.
Okay.
Things like critical thinking, complex problem solving,
Yeah.
emotional intelligence leadership.
Right.
Those are all areas where humans are going to continue to excel.
It's interesting because we're talking about empathy, creativity, intuition.
Exactly.
All those things that are at the core of what it means to be human.
Yeah, those are the skills that allow us to connect with other people, build relationships, and navigate a really complex world.
And those aren't things that AI can just replicate.
Exactly. Generative AI can give us data, it can generate options, but it can't really replicate the depth and the nuance
That's right.
of human understanding.
So it's not just about, AI taking over tasks.
Right.
It's about a fundamental shift in how we approach work.
I think that's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
We need to move away from the tasks that can be automated and focus on those areas where our human strengths really shine.
Can you give me a concrete example
Sure.
of what that might look like?
Yeah, so imagine a small business owner
Okay.
wants to launch a new product.
Okay.
They could use generative AI to do things like research market trends,
Okay.
analyze data about their competitors,
Uh-huh.
and even generate some initial product concepts.
So the AI is doing like a lot of the heavy lifting when it
Yes.
comes to
Right.
data gathering and analysis.
Yeah. Right. But then it's up to the human to take all that information
Oh.
and make the key decisions.
Right.
Things like who is their target audience, what are their brand values, and what's their vision for this product.
So the AI is a tool,
Yes,
like a very powerful tool,
it is.
but the human is still in control.
The human is the one making the decisions.
Okay, I like that. And I think that applies to like all different aspects of a business.
Yeah, it does think about customer service.
Okay.
You can use generative AI to create chatbots
Right.
that can answer those frequently asked questions
Uh-huh.
and handle some of those basic issues.
And then that frees up the human customer service reps to deal with
Exactly.
the more complicated stuff.
The things that require empathy and understanding and building a rapport with the customer.
I like that it's like we're not being replaced, we're being elevated.
That's a great way to think about it. It's about embracing the potential for AI to enhance our human capabilities.
Yeah.
And that requires us to adapt and learn.
So what kind of learning are we talking about here?
Well, it's about both.
Okay.
You know, we have to be comfortable with the technology, but we also need to develop those uniquely human skills that are going to allow us to thrive.
So things like critical thinking,
Yes.
problem solving,
Yes.
communication collaboration.
All of those things. And those skills are always in demand,
Right.
but they're going to be even more important.
In this future.
Exactly. And we can't forget about creativity.
Oh yeah, that's a big one.
That's something AI just can't fully replicate.
They can try.
But it's our ability to think outside the box,
Right.
come up with those new ideas and innovative solutions. That's what's going to set us apart.
I'm really starting to see the bigger picture here.
Yeah.
It's not about, humans versus AI.
Right.
It's about humans and AI
Working together.
working together to achieve amazing things.
That's exactly what it is. And it's not just about individual businesses succeeding.
Right.
It's about creating a more dynamic,
Efficient and fulfilling work environment for everyone.
I love that that's a really inspiring thought. So we've talked about the challenges, the opportunities,
Uh-huh.
the importance of human skills. What else should small business owners be thinking about
Yeah.
as they kind of navigate this new world of generative AI?
Well, one of the most important things is to stay informed
Yeah,
and to be willing to experiment.
right.
The world of AI is evolving so rapidly,
It really is.
so you have to keep up with the latest developments
Uh-huh.
and be open to trying new things.
Like, don't be afraid to just jump in and see how it works for you.
Exactly.
Hmm.
But it's also really important to be mindful of the ethical considerations
Oh, yeah, that's a big one.
surrounding AI.
It's not just about the technology itself.
Right.
It's about using it responsibly.
Exactly. And that means thinking about things like data privacy bias and the potential impact on jobs and the workforce as a whole.
So it's approaching it with a thoughtful and ethical mindset.
Exactly.
It sounds like there's a lot to consider.
But also a lot to be excited about
The future of work is evolving right before our eyes,
right in front of us.
and generative AI is playing a huge role in that.
This has been a really insightful conversation.
It has.
We've covered so much
We have.
from the practical applications of generative AI to like
Yeah.
the broader implications for the future of work.
And we've only scratched the surface.
Yeah. There's so much more to learn.
So much more.
I'm excited to see what the future holds. It feels like we're on the cusp of something really transformative.
It does feel that way.
But before we get too ahead of ourselves,
Uh-huh.
I think it's time to take a step back and think about how all of this applies to you, our listener. So we've been talking about how generative AI is really, like changing the game for small businesses.
Mm-hmm.
But what does it all mean for you?
Yeah, that's a question you got to ask yourself.
Right? Like, what does this mean for me?
Yeah, because it's going to have an impact whether you're a business owner, an employee, or just someone who's curious about the future. It's going to affect us all.
So any advice for our listeners?
Yeah, the first thing is to really embrace this idea of lifelong learning.
I love that never stop learning.
Never stop. The skills that are in demand today might not be the same ones that we need tomorrow.
Right. You got to be adaptable.
Exactly. So be curious, explore new technologies, and, don't be afraid to get out of that comfort zone.
Right. Like get comfortable being uncomfortable.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And, it's not just about those technical skills.
Yeah.
It's those uniquely human skills that we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
those are going to be even more important.
Yeah, like critical thinking, creativity,
Emotional intelligence.
emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are the things that set you apart.
Exactly.
And that's going to allow you to really thrive in a world where
Mhm.
AI is, just becoming more and more common. So
Exactly.
it's not about being replaced by AI.
Right.
It's about working alongside it.
It's about finding those ways to leverage the strengths
Yeah.
of both humans and machines
To create something really cool.
to create something amazing and impactful.
I love that because it makes it feel empowering. Like,
Yeah.
we're not just passive bystanders
Right.
in this,
Yeah.
technological revolution. We have the power to shape it
We do.
and to use it
Yes.
in a way
To our advantage.
benefits us.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that perspective. It's not about being afraid of the future.
Yeah.
It's about embracing it and kind of shaping it to,
To reflect our values.
our values and, what we want it to be.
Exactly.
Well, this has been a really insightful conversation.
It has been.
We've covered so much,
A lot of ground.
a lot of ground from the practical,
Yeah.
applications of generative AI to like the bigger picture
The future.
of the future of work.
Yeah, and we've only just scratched the surface.
There's so much more to learn.
There is so much more to explore.
And I, for one, am excited to see what the future holds. It feels like we're
Yeah.
right on the edge of something big.
It does feel that way, doesn't it?
It does. But on that note,
Yeah.
we're going to wrap up this deep dive.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Yes, thank you to all of our listeners.
We'd love to hear your thoughts on this episode, so feel free to share any questions, comments, insights.
Anything at all.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep.